So, July 7th, 2023, 8:30, the Richland County Public Safety and Judiciary Standing Committee meeting. We're a little late, and I apologize for getting here just a little bit late. So, let's get going. Do we have a quorum? Yes, we do. We met the quorum. Okay, very good. Read and approve the notice, was posted properly. Aaron, okay, thank you. Read and approve minutes from June 2nd, 2023, public safety meeting. I'll need a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Pete, second. Thank you, Gary, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving forward then to the coroner updates. Do we have any coroner updates, Sheriff? Did you get those?
Nothing from coroner's office.
Okay, so the last update we had from them would have been last month.
I think the last one I have is May.
2 months. Okay, all right, thank you. Moving forward then, circuit court judge updates. Let's pick that up.
Good morning.
Well, good morning.
All right, so just a few things. First of all, I know she doesn't know I'm gonna do this, but the lady sitting next to me, this is Sarah Earhart, and maybe you don't know her. She's our deputy clerk of court. So she is Stacy Kleiss' right hand. Stacy's on vacation this week, so Sarah's gonna give the clerk of court update. I am so happy to report that we did get the installation of a new speaker in the courtroom, speaker on the bench, which I've been inquiring about and hoping to get the last year, actually. And so MIS was kind enough to help arrange that. The speaker works great. I'm able to hear what I need to hear now. And one of the concerns was whether or not we're situated, whether there be feedback from the speakers that are coming, that are placed in the ceiling, and there's been absolutely no feedback. So very glad that we were able to take care of that. I think it's pretty important that I be able to hear what's going on in the courtroom. Hopefully the next project that we have will be the wiring in the big courtroom. We need 2 microphones at each table. We have 1 right now. And the reason for that is that since Sue Kataravik retired, she, as you probably know, was a stenographer. She was our court reporter, and she did everything by typing it and listening herself. We've gone to a purely digital audio recording, court recording system. And what that means is every word that's said needs to be caught digitally. And that requires the use of microphones, which are provided to us through the state. The microphones themselves are provided to us through, by the state. What is not provided to us by the state are the actual wires going into the system. Why that is, I'm not sure. And the wiring itself. And so we've been speaking with MIS about that, and I think that is in the works. And so we're looking forward to that because honestly, most hearings, you have more than 1 individual at each council table. So when we have 1 microphone, they're passing it back and forth, often at a very fast rate, and often a lot of words are lost or hard to hear, at least through this system. We've been working on the capital improvement project budget, and I'm gonna let Jenny talk about that a little bit, but we're glad that that's making some progress. Capital improvement plan, I believe it is, right? And so we've been looking at some of the needs of the circuit court in that context. So I'm very grateful that we've had John's help and to help navigate what the long-term needs of the circuit court are in terms of expenses. We continue to have the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee meetings, which are required by Supreme Court rule. We have those quarterly. We're gonna have another one in a couple of weeks. As I explained previously, it's a great place for all the stakeholders in the criminal justice system to come together and talk about the needs in the county and how to meet those and what the different players are doing and how we can all coordinate and collaborate our efforts to be able to accomplish what needs to happen for the benefit of the people in this county. We also meet quarterly, the courthouse security meeting also meets quarterly, and we've been diligent to do that. We'll have one of those coming up, I think, in the next month. And that committee looks specifically at security needs in the courthouse and in the courtroom. And we've had some good discussions there, and hopefully the committee will be beneficial as we talk about long-term needs for house and the courtroom and what makes sense for the county. And then finally, I just want to, in past meetings, I've indicated that we've had some backlog in the circuit court. We've spent as long as I've been on the bench trying to catch up, resolve some cases, a lot of cases that we're getting old, where there's been some delay, and we continue to do that. And I have there's a tool in the judicial computer system that allows me to look at what kind of dispositions there have been, rates of dispositions with cases, and it looks like we are finally at a place where we are actually disposing of more cases than are coming in, which means that we truly are clearing some of the backlog, which benefits everybody, because that means that the judicial system in this county can be more efficient. We can hear cases in a more timely manner. We can be more flexible in our scheduling. I think there's obviously a cost savings overall with that, but it just makes for a better environment for the county. So that's the circuit court update.
So my question for you, Judge, is the small courtroom. We had discussions about that a couple of times. Is that still a moving project that's looking forward? You're working on that?
It is, and we, I believe we put that into the capital.
Okay.
25,000. Now, we had, MIS had Marco come in, who's the company that we have contracted with and did all of the wiring and all of the updates in the big courtroom. And they gave us a quote for the small courtroom. I don't remember exactly what that was, you? 42,000, and that includes putting an audio system in the small courtroom. Right now, there is no audio system in the courtroom. And by that, I mean amplification. In other words, you go in the small courtroom, and just because there's a microphone in front of you, it doesn't mean that it's helping the people across the room to hear you any better. Those microphones only what's being said into that digital recording system. And the problem in the small courtroom is we have the radiators on each side of the room. And in the winter, you gotta have them on because it's freezing in there. And in the summer, you gotta have it on because it's sweltering in there. And it's very difficult to hear over folks. So that estimate that we got from Marco included not only Zoom capabilities, but also speakers so that everybody can hear what's going on in there without having a heat stroke or something like that. It truly is a difficult problem. So, and we do really, really need Zoom in the small courtroom. We regularly run into issues of needing to use Zoom, whether it's an attorney appearing by Zoom or a doctor or an expert, or a witness or something like that. And if we don't have it in there, it becomes a problem when there's two courtrooms going on. I mean, the logistics of it are almost impossible to navigate sometimes. So hopefully we can get up to speed and in the next year or two, see some improvements Thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. So the 42,000 is like roughly the project total. That's the Zoom, the wiring, and then that's basically the project. All right, thank you. Anything else?
Not for me, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just one thing I want to add. Thank you. One thing I want to add on the issues with hearing in the courtroom. One of the things that I'm a firm believer in is that when we have an opportunity in the public sector, especially in areas where we have seniors using our facilities, but it's not just seniors, it's everyone who has hearing issues, is there something called hearing loops that can be put in the floors, under tile, under carpeting, whatever. The price on them has come way down in the last 10 years. And what a hearing loop does is it enables anyone who has a Bluetooth hearing aid. Sound system is being used in the room. Those individuals then can pick up that audio through their hearing aids. So it's hearing loops, and there's other names, but they're most commonly referred to as hearing loops. So a lot of senior centers, community centers, those types of things in the public sector, when they're building new or they're remodeling, they include hearing loops.
Is that included in this estimated?
It is not.
Okay. Is that something we can get a dollar cost on to get an idea?
Well, typically you have to tear up the floor, or you put it, like if you have wainscoting on, they can put it behind the wainscoting. So, you know, I'm certainly want to tear up all the flooring in the courtroom. But it's just in general, I'm saying, I think this is a good idea.
Looking forward.
Or moving forward, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Just don't worry.
Circuit Court Judge updates, anything else under item 6?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, and Circuit Court updates, including monthly updates and reports.
So Stacy sent an email about what is currently going on with the budget, and she stated that it's doing.
Closer to the mic.
Sorry, I'm not used to speaking into it. My
The closer the better.
it's not on.
He did.
There's people that can't hear.
Need hearing loops?
It's like maybe it's not working.
It's on.
What?
Okay, let's try this again.
Closer.
So Stacy sent a.
It's on.
Just turn it on or not.
Nope. I don't want it off six.
Okay, Stacy sent out.
Spend a year in batteries.
A lot. I can't wait for this room to be done.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's just fine. Stacy sent out an email for an update of how the budget is going so far. She stated that it's doing really well. This time last year, we're actually 15,000 ahead. So that is excellent. And she's predicting that the budget will be very similar to what it was last year. But other than that, it's just the normal day-to-day proceedings and solving problems as they come about.
Okay, I would like to note, Stacy did send, her letter out, which I'm thankful for. And, one of the comments I'd like to make here, I'd just like to get it out. Read it through, is next week it says, I will have the honor of representing Wisconsin Clerk of Circuit Court Association at the National Court Managers Conference, NACM in Tampa, Florida. None of the expenses for this trip are expenses for Richland County. This is my first time at a national conference. I'm excited to learn and from leading court officials throughout the country. So I'm very thankful she's taken that opportunity for that knowledge base, and that education part of it. And I guess the icing on it is the expenses were covered by another organization, it sounds like, too, on top of it. So thank her for working. Anything else from the clerk of court? Any questions from the committee? So do we approve those?
Yes, reports.
It's just reports, or no finances, and it's just insurance. Okay, it's trying to catch up. All right, then anything else on item number 7 for? All right, moving on. Item number 8, probate departments.
So I just wanted to reiterate what the judge has already said about the small courtroom. Judge Rude had an all-day court trial in there, and it got very, very warm in there, even with one of the registers in there. So I cannot overemphasize enough some of the struggles that we are presented with in the small courtroom, including the Zoom, the amplification, and the heat and cold. So having said that, I just want to bring to your attention that Judge Rude from Vernon County is retiring. And so District Attorney Timothy Gaskell has been elected. As you know, not too long ago, this happened in Iowa County, where, so Judge Allen, who was the previous district attorney, is now the judge there. So we have a lot of back and forth right now currently with Iowa County because of the conflicts, Judge McDougall had as being the public defender and the conflicts that Judge Allen has being the district attorney. Those are going to be coming our way. I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of notification that Judge Rude's last day in Vernon County is July 31st, I believe. And so in August, when Mr. Gaskell takes over as judge, he is going to have a lot of conflicts with a lot of existing cases in Vernon County, which means many, many of those are going to be coming our way because our closest exchanges between the judge or between the counties are Iowa County and Vernon County. We get a few Crawford County, we get some in Adams County, we get some Juneau County. Judge has all different counties that we accommodate by Zoom. And then on rare occasions, like she'll be going to Vernon County this afternoon. She's had to go to Crawford County for plea and sentencing. So I'm just trying to inform you that there's a lot of back and forth between all of these counties. And so again, the importance of having Zoom available in both courtrooms, the importance of when we have all of these visiting judges, which is going to be increased starting in August here. So we have been struggling as it is, and we've been making do, and we made do through COVID. But now I feel like things are really coming to a head. Just of the dynamics where judges are retiring, new ones are coming on board. So we do not have the necessary accommodations in Richland County that other courthouses have. We are behind on things. We're behind on what's needed in the courtroom. We're behind on what's needed for court security because when we have two judges here all day long, that means double court security. So this is a notification not to you as our committee, but also to law enforcement that in the coming months, our needs are going to be increasing. I'm sorry to say this, but that's where we are. And it's, that means more workload for all of us. So I just wanted to bring that to all of your attention. The coordination that it takes is a lot between, we also have Judge Curran from Richland County, Judge Ryder from Crawford. So when you're trying to schedule for 6 to 7 different judges and make sure you have clerks available, courtrooms available, everything ready for the cases, it's a lot. And I just need you to understand that. Having said all of that, the budget, moving on just a little bit, is kind of just like Stacy's. We're right on track. We're halfway through the year. I'm at 51% for my side of revenues. I'm at 43% for attorney fees. I know we always get hit at those. I do have to make a comment, and I wasn't able to attend the finance and personnel meeting. And I assume this is kind of a back and forth. This is my opportunity to give my reports. This is also my opportunity to express my concerns. So maybe I need more explanation, and I've said this to my committee, and I maybe need to say this to the entire county board, but every time you make a vote, please keep in mind all departments, how it affects them, how it affects their morale, and what it does for this county and the employees. Because when one department seems to be looked at more favorably, It affects all of us. So maybe I need to speak with you individually, but I'm just expressing my concern and once again, asking with every vote to look at the big picture.
Okay,
Do you have any questions for me?
thank you. So, a couple of things. One is with the judge, Rude is retiring. Can retired judges still come in and help? Or once they're retired, are they off the helping docket?
Well, they can be reserve judges.
No, it's not on
It's not. Okay, so retired judges can be what are called reserved judges, and they can be brought in. That is entirely up to the district court administrator. And, the state doesn't like to do that.
Okay.
Reserve judges only come in, like, there's an extended absence, like when Judge Sharp retired, before I took the bench, there was a 3-month gap there, and there were reserve judges brought in. But typically not, just costs the state too much money, I guess, to just stick a reserve judge in to hear cases where there's been a substitution or there's a conflict. And so those of us that are in one judge counties, we did assign the other one judge counties, and that's why there's all this back and forth. So yeah, reserve judges are a thing, and retired judges typically are reserve judges, but they're used very sparingly and only in certain circumstances.
Okay.
And they're not within our control.
That would be a possible help solution. Secondly, I'm gonna ask that you don't be sorry for bringing these things to us. That's what we want you to do. We want to hear those things, and we also appreciate solutions that come with those when you have ideas with that too. So please don't ever feel sorry to bring something up. Okay? Thank you. Anything else? Anything else on the probate? Hearing nothing. Moving on to the district attorney update, item number 9.
Sure, I'll start with the good news-ish. As of right now, our budget, we're at 40% rather than 50%, so that's good. We were way under last year, we're under again this year. Of course, the bad news is that comes about because we, like everyone else, are having, I'm used to speaking very loudly, so sorry about that.
I can't turn you up because it's not picking you up because it's too far away.
Okay, all right. Our first employee, so we got, finally, we were approved for a second victim witness position. We have a supervisor and a coordinator that came out after years of working through the Marcy's Law amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution and the changes to Chapter 950. That position wasn't filled last year for a variety of difficulties in getting someone to come and work. I won't even say in my office, just to work. And we got that position filled at the beginning of the year. That's great. So I was way under budget last year by 1 position's worth. Got an employee. It was actually from another office. It was Veronica Olson, bailed out of this office because of concerns that there was going to be another cut. Is that fair to say, right? So you're going to go to a safer position. This makes sense. So she was in my office for 3 months. She was fantastic. She didn't take healthcare, which from a budgeting standpoint is a good thing. But then she looked to the county is just looking to axe anyone they can. So then she moved to state employment. So now she is the court reporter for Judge McDougall. So she has moved partly because that is at least the perceived safest spot. So we're getting a lot of maneuvering because of that. But so we got a new employee, so we got Veronica left, we went through this whole process to get someone else. We had someone who was fantastic, her skill, 100%, and we knew that coming in. But she's also kind of shot in the dark. So, and we also knew that going in. So she came, she worked for my office for 3 weeks and 5 days, didn't give notice, and there we go. And so Monday morning, we all went, we don't have our person working here anymore. So then we had to go through the process again, kind of a truncated process because in consultation with Corporation Counsel Wendell, he said since she wasn't even off her, she wasn't even off her probationary period by 5 months, and we had just gone through the process that I could hire from the pool that I had already had, since the pool was just the pool, you know, a month before that. So I contacted the gal who was lined up second on our list. It was a close second. First gal had killer skills, kind of a shot in the dark. The second lady had good skills, but hadn't been in the system. And so we don't think that she's as much of a shot in the dark as our first go around. So she will be starting here, I think next week. So we're very excited about that. And some people here in the system do know her and have worked with a variety of people in her family. So we are excited about that. That all means I had times open in my office. Someone wasn't taking healthcare. People were being flaky. And so that resulted in a budget savings. Since I'm the last one in this list or group, I get to pile on the small courtroom issue. And so for one thing is, one judge that we didn't talk about was from Grant County. We now have Judge Lisa Riniker. She will be the judge in another month or so. She is also a former prosecutor. So we also have, so the Grant County is in the district. So now we have another set of cases that are going to be coming in, very well can be coming in this direction. So with all these prosecutors ascending to the bench where we all aspire to be, it's going to create a lot more work just in general, and then managing the 2 courtrooms. And how that particularly affects my office is we don't have Zoom capabilities in the small courtroom, which means we can't have victims appear in that fashion. It has been a boon to victims' rights, and now we have Marcy's Law that kind of augments that, where we can have victims appear by Zoom. Imagine, I'll use you, sorry for being a victim today, but you know, you're a victim of a crime, you want to be involved in this process. You don't want to just be seen as a piece of evidence. That's how the whole victims' rights process started back in the late 80s. Once upon a time, victims were just evidence, packed away, and really didn't know anything about the system. No one cared, no one dealt with the trauma, they weren't involved. So that's how that came about. So, but before we were able to modernize, and that got pushed more because of COVID, now we have victims who previously you're victimized, you were raped, but you work at Cardinal. They're not going to let you out for a 5-minute hearing in front of the judge on initial appearance where the guy just comes in and says, I don't have a lawyer, I want to reset the hearing. So victim has to take a couple hours of work off if they can get it, to come to Richland County because they have a right to be involved. And then either nothing happens, which is the way it is sometimes, or they can't get off and that kind of thing. So now that we have Zoom, and so we didn't have a lot of victims participating because only victims who didn't have jobs or could get off or lived close or, you know, did all those kind of things could come. But now we have real buy-in to the system. Again, partly it's because the law has changed and partly because our technology has changed. But now we're working 2 courtrooms and my victim witness supervisor and coordinator. So we've got them split up. So that's good. That's partly why we needed it, partly in this fashion. But sometimes because the scheduling is so difficult, we can't tell our victims if they can appear by Zoom or not, right? So we have a woman who has been raped under this scenario, and we can't even tell her until maybe right before, yes, you can appear by Zoom and see the proceeding this way. Maybe the defendant is getting sentenced, maybe to prison, maybe to something. Can you participate if you come, or can you not come? Because the scheduling is so difficult, right? So we have an inability to meet our requirements under statute and under constitutional law here. So that creates this other victim dynamic, which is a different dynamic and a different thing than the court has. It's not your business. It is your business. It is a requirement under the law that the courts take this into consideration, of course, and I'm not saying that you don't, but it becomes, it's higher up our list of things to do than the judge having to hear the parties. How's that? Judges got to hear, we've got to take care of our records. So That's just to kind of augment those comments there. So I think I'm the last on the line of this is a problem. Speaking of how the victim witness positions are happening at this point, we could not have filled them at a better time. Partly because of what's going on with the other jurisdictions, partly because we have things like, and this is really illustrative, right now we have 2 homicide cases. There's going to be a 3rd one charged out in the very near future. When we have a homicide case, the statutory victims are fairly broad, right? You have a spouse, you have any of their siblings, you have any of their children. So while you might have 1 fact victim, we have a case that's got like 13 statutory victims. So we have 1 case that's producing all of these victims by law that we have to provide services to. And of course, in cases like that, generally, we have a greater victim response and a greater victim interaction than if it's Goodwill who got flip-flops stolen from them, which happens all the time. But it's a different kind of service that we have to provide. So we are really getting inundated, which we knew was happening, which is how, when the law changed, we knew this was going to happen. We addressed it, and those positions are now becoming even more, they come into play even more because of all of these other, we're sort of getting the tsunami of victim issues happening. So that has, we are able to manage that in a way that we couldn't do before. So despite my bit of grumbling about the concerns about the small courtroom, everything's going ahead as planned in the office, prosecute cases. People behave poorly, people are mental health problems, AODA problems, or criminal thinking problems. And that's going to be the same every single month that I come in here for the last 12 years and probably the next 12 years. God help me if I'm still here in 12 years. But so as far as the actual work of the office, we keep on keeping on.
So at this point then, you are staffed?
Yes, we are fully staffed.
Good to hear.
Check me at the next meeting.
That's fine. So my next question then, with the different judges that are retiring and the different prosecutors that are becoming judges, going to the different counties and the different cases, who schedules and goes through and says, hey, the Grant County judge is going to come to Richland or Vernon, while the Vernon judge is going to go to, does that? How does that work?
The district court administrator, whose name is Pat Drummond, he's up on the cross. He's sort of the one who tries to herd the judges, which is like herding cats, right? So he's the one, and so it's through his office, they decide what judge is going to take what case. Hopefully I won't go into Grant County a lot, but they have 2 judges there. Hopefully they figured it out where they can adjust, but regardless, yeah.
Okay. I was curious how that.
Yeah, no, we don't really have any say over what we take or don't take. It just gets assigned.
All right, Jada.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So the district court administrator decides what cases are assigned to what judge.
Okay.
So within that case, when say Judge McDougall gets a Vernon County case, she's assigned to that judge. But then when it comes to the individual scheduling of the hearing or the court trials and that type of thing, then that comes back to the judicial assistants.
Yeah.
So just as a reminder, I have 3 hats: judicial assistant, juvenile clerk, and register and probate.
Got it.
Right, so when I'm out of county, Jenny's workload increases with every case that's out of county because she's the one that has to find room on my schedule, and everybody's working through her, and it's all one step removed because it's in a different county.
Thank you, I did not understand that, so I appreciate that information. Anything else on the district attorney update that?
No.
All right. Any questions? Okay, moving forward, item number 10, emergency management.
Good morning. So in your packet, you should have 3 documents from emergency management. The first one would be the expenditure guideline. Our revenues for emergency management are tax levy and emergency management performance grant. So we don't generate any kind of revenue beyond that. So for expenditures, we are at 45% that we've spent. There are some line items that we have gone over. Workman's comp insurance being one, truck and command post insurance being the other, is about $1,400 over. And with a budget that literally last year, I think we came in within like a couple $100. It's really tight. I'm gonna be over, so just want to put that out there because there's no room. There's never been any room provided for things like that. And fortunately, fortunately, we haven't had any of our, our spring and June flooding, but unfortunately, the area is in a drought and I know everybody's looking forward for some rain. So let's just not get too much because we won't have any dollars in there for response. The other document that you have in there is for the local emergency planning committee. And again, that's a pretty much bare bones. The local emergency planning committee is a federal requirement. Most of the money goes towards the hazmat planner, the hazmat team, some office equipment, and some response equipment. And we've spent 32% of the budget. But again, that's not to say that we're, doing great in that area. It's because we haven't seen those invoices from the hazmat team and contracted individual come in yet. So the 32% is where we're at for those two budgets. 32 and 45, I said, or 47, 45. So any questions on those two budget items before I go into my last piece?
Yeah, so, on your emergency management budget, you said you're gonna be over, you're currently at 45% though, which is below the 50%. Are you talking about just individual line items you were concerned about being over? Or are you expecting larger things at the end of the year?
No, there's other things in there that, I can't explain why, but there was no money budgeted for lights for the new building, heat for the new building, and any utilities. And that doesn't all fall on the ambulance service. 10% of the utilities should be covered under emergency management, 90 is covered under the ambulance, but that money was taken out. So we're paying utilities that we're not budgeted for. I'm allotted $100 for repairs.
Repairs of,
the command post.
Okay.
And we had a repair for $225.50. So that line item is now over $125.50. So, again, 45%, I think the reason why we're there is because we had one pay period where it was one week's worth of pay, which is gonna take a week's worth of pay and benefits, push that out. Not benefits, because that comes first. So the week is gonna push that out. So my point being here is that this budget is extremely tight. And it's been tight every year that I've been here, all 18 of them. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. So when we get to the end, I'll do as much as I possibly can in other line items to try to bring that bottom dollar, in as close as possible. But it doesn't take much to push this budget over the edge. So.
okay, any other questions on those two topics, those two documents? Hearing nothing?
So the last item that I have for you, and I won't take too much time because I know you've got plenty on your plate, but last year around June, there was a resolution that was passed, I think it was actually passed in August, that certain departments had to go through and come up with a business plan that could demonstrate that department could function without receiving any county tax levy dollars. And I'd like to start out by saying that going as far back as I can find, the ambulance service, at least going into the 80s, has not received any county tax levy dollars to operate on. It's been all operating on fees that we've generated. So the resolution that was passed required the ambulance service, I think the fair, Simon's, a couple other entities were supposed to have a business plan drafted and brought before finance and personnel by June. That was brought to them, not as a discussion point, but it was given to members of finance and personnel the first part of June. I haven't spoken to Chairman Brewer yet on when he wants to get that on the agenda for more discussion, but I know that we wanted to have time for finance and personnel members to get, the eyes on the plan and look at it. And being that this is another committee that kind of oversees my department, I'm just bringing it forward to you. I'm going to highlight a few points of it. It is kind of a lengthy document. The executive summary the executive summary starts out by highlighting challenges in EMS. And if anybody's been paying attention to anything in the news, EMS has been struggling for a long period of time, both in funding and staffing. And so we used reports like the Reliability Wisconsin's 911 ambulance response report that was put out by the Wisconsin Office of Rural Health in 2023, and then Sustainable Rural EMS Navigating Change that was published through National Rural Health Resource Center in 2021. We used those two as kind of our benchmark to align with those reports because they were very much they went into the whole idea of volunteerism. Is it sustainable? How do rural communities keep an ambulance service, sustainable, and so on. So that kind of set the groundwork of this plan. If you dive into it and really follow along, you will see that the ambulance service can be self-sustaining. But there are pieces of this that there's going to have to be some, maybe some change in the philosophy of the county owning an ambulance service. And going to need some support from the county board on a handful of changes that need to be made if we want to continue to be sustainable. But this report clearly outlines, and all the financial documents are in there, that we don't need county tax levy dollars. Our goal is to operate the ambulance service autonomously in the sense of finances so that we're not a burden on any other department that is mandated by the Constitution or is mandated by statute, but that we can still provide what is, I consider, a very necessary service for the community. EMS is not an essential service in Wisconsin. I think there's only a handful of states that it is. But I think that any one of you, if you needed an ambulance and you dialed 911 and we didn't show up, you would probably have questions as to why. And I think that's, the mindset of most people in the community. They want an ambulance service there. So the plan clearly outlines that we can operate without county tax levy dollars. We can fund our own vehicles, and we have a plan on maintaining the building that was given to us by not just the county, but by a generous donation from a community member and the generosity of the RIC board lowering the price. Business objective number one is to continue to provide excellent pre-hospital care and begin the process of revising our operational plan to include flex scheduling. Flex scheduling is going to allow us to utilize the RNs and other staff on our service to provide a higher level of care, but there's a step process you have to go through, operational plan changes, protocols that have to be done as well. Add additional full-time and casual staff in order to improve services. Recruit, retain, and train full-time casual call and paid on-call staff. That's number 3. Number 4, to analyze current and future communities served, projecting the operating needs of the service for the next 5 years, and maintain provisions for future rate staffing and other operational needs. And then number 5, establish a community presence that reinforces the image of the department as a community partner through such programs focusing on community care and community outreach. And there's a big push in the country for community care. Wisconsin actually added advanced EMT, the community care program. That's an opportunity where ambulance services who have the staff and the availability can work with hospitals and clinics to go out and provide some care so that people aren't coming back to the ER or coming back to urgent care, and trying to take the burden off of the system. So still have a lot more education on that system myself before we can dive into that, but that is something that we're looking at. Our plan priorities is a staffing model. So nowhere here in the plan does it show that we are going to completely just abandon any and all individuals that want to volunteer for our service, and I want to preface that nobody on our service is a true volunteer in the sense they don't get paid. All of our staff get paid something. But we want to make sure that we can continue to provide staffing levels that meet the needs of the community. Two, building and equipment maintenance. So we want to make sure our assets are maintained and planned for future investments are budgeted for. And so we have an outline in there of how we want to set money aside, how much we need to set aside for capital improvements, HVAC, roof, ambulances, cots, cardiac monitors. All of this is without tax levy dollars. We have a replacement schedule for our ambulances. Now you'll see there, they're highlighted, and that's because I'm still waiting for final costs on what that might look like in 2028 and 2032. We have other capital expenditures in there, such as the roof repair that we had already knew that we were gonna have to do, so we've been setting aside money for that. Training is another one. Leadership roles within the organization, recruitment. We need to continue to monitor conditions and staffing model regularly to ensure recruitment and retention of enough staff to meet the requirements as laid forth in Wisconsin Administrative Code 110. And I want to put this question out here. This is not to sound disrespectful or sarcastic, but does anybody know the starting wage at Quick Trip in town? I think it's 15 or 16 an hour, 16 an hour. What's that? $19 an hour, okay. We start out our advanced EMTs at $14.95 an hour. It's a one-year college degree, and you're delivering medications in the field that can have adverse reaction and adverse effects on that patient. And you're at $14.95 an hour. That has to change. I understand that we want fair across the board. I want 2%, everybody else wants 2%. But what's not fair is you're asking individuals to do life-saving measures at any hour of the day, $14.95 an hour. I will not keep people if we can't pay them a competitive wage. That competitive wage means it's going to go up quite a bit. Surrounding ambulance services, Dodgeville, comparable to Richland County, ambulance service comparable to Richland Center. They have less calls than us, less square miles to cover. Their starting wage is $7.05 more an hour than mine. More an hour. $7.05 more an hour starting wage. Another small community, Mineral Point, smaller than Richland Center. They're at $8 more an hour starting. Dodgeville offers the exact same benefits. Reedsburg area ambulance service, a little bit bigger. They are paramedic service. They run a little bit more call volume, but they're nearly $4.50 or $5. I'm looking at Barb because she used to work there. And that's their base. If somebody comes in with experience, they pay more. So through the discussions, I know that it may, and I support what Jenny's saying. When finance and personnel, when there's a decision made, sometimes maybe you did look at the big picture. We don't know that, but the big picture has to be what's in front of you all the time. I think there might be some departments though that you have to look at, and maybe needs to be an adjustment made so that they can be competitive, so that they're not so far behind. Our last goal, one of our last goals, is to strengthen partnerships. We've been working really hard to strengthen our partnership with the Richland Hospital, and that's through providing interfacility work. That's just opening up, keeping the doors open to communication. So next in the plan is our 5-year service goals, and I have those laid out. So I did send to Carlson Detman a review of the advanced EMT starting wage, because I know we're coming up on budget, and it is a part of this business plan to do that. I need to know what is market. Because I will also say that there are some ambulance services that are paying a ton of money, and it's not sustainable. And we can't do that either. It has to be, sustainable, equitable for the individuals coming in, but we can't just say, well, here's $30 an hour, and not be able to sustain that. There's also a history and position to date within this. So those of you that, aren't familiar with the ambulance service, we went back as far as we could and kind of laid out, the history of the service. You'll also see expenditures from 2015 all the way through budgeted for 2023. Projected revenue with operational costs are in there as well, so you can see what we're bringing in, what we're going out. Projected wages that are in there, they're highlighted. And there's also a stipulation saying that we need to review and look at that. If it's not highlighted, or if it's, it's flat across the board, that's just the way I feel that it has to be in order for us to be successful. Calls for service, our calls for service continue to go. And I think that we're gonna see that projection continue probably all the way into 2035 and increase, because our population is increasing and you can just follow the trends. And we actually created within Excel an ability to do that, plug the numbers in and see the trends. So if anybody's interested in the hundreds of documents and Excel spreadsheets that we use to formulate this, more than welcome to share those with you. It was a lot of time. I don't want to say hundreds and hundreds, but it was definitely over 100 hours of just analyzing data. But we're running 2017 972 calls. Last year was 1,192, and we're going to probably exceed that and be over 1,200 calls for service. The 2018 statistics, I'm just going to put this in here as well. Falls was the #1 call at 197. Next was sick person, 137, 91 breathing problems, 51 traffic accidents, 40 chest pain. 2022 falls remain the same, it's 259. Sick person, 155, breathing problem, 105. Chest pain and car accidents just flip-flop, and they were within a couple of calls of each other, so I thought that was interesting. Another thing we hear quite often from members of the community is, why don't you do interfacility transfers? Why did I have to wait 4 hours for an ambulance? And there's a lot of reasons for that. If the community member's loved one is on a cardiac medication, on a drip, on an antibiotic that we can't do without our skill, we can't take that transfer. And then I'll always hear, well, send a nurse. Why can't you send a nurse? Richland Hospital, just like every other hospital, is trying to stay in business. And so therefore, sometimes staffing doesn't allow for that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And so interfacility transfers are a big need in our community. I mean, it's such a big need that we've had outside ambulance services come in here and try to provide it. They don't stay long because they can't sustain just on interfacility work. So we did an analysis of financial impacts of our transfers, and I have it right down to the cost, to the 10th of a mile, what we get reimbursed. When we do transfers to Pine Valley, UW Health, Gunderson, if we do a transfer from Vernon to Gunderson, from St. Joe's Hillsborough to Gunderson. So you can see all of that, the different rates, how much we would be reimbursed. And last year, 2022 alone, we had to turn down 107 transfers that we could have taken, but because of staffing, we were not able to. And that was a net loss of $89,712. So when we're able to do the transfers, not all transfers, you have to be smart about them. Some of them you're not going to get anything. We try to avoid those at all costs. Some of the things that this plan takes into consideration, one was the forecast, and so there have to be planning assumptions. So some of the assumptions that I went out on a limb, I'm going to say, and made was, one, that the EMS service area will remain stable through 2026. It's no secret that the ambulance services in Southwest Wisconsin and throughout the state are struggling. If we were to have a neighboring service not be able to continue on, that burden would probably be borne by us. The existing facility is appropriately maintained with no major issues identified. We went through the process of a building inspection and things like that, so we don't anticipate that we're going to have HVAC systems go down. Right now, when we bought the building, it was only 3 years old. Most of the HVAC equipment, other than the new garage part. We anticipate that we're not going to have to replace an ambulance. We are going to have to replace an engine in an ambulance. We had an engine go out on us this weekend. We're anticipating that the availability of positions will be opened as they are open and are filled. We anticipate that the service area isn't going to change significantly in the next 3 years, nor will the regional economic instability get too much more unstable. And we are forecasting that the political atmosphere does not negatively impact recruitment and retention potential. And that, I'm not the only department that has shared that that's had impacts on us being able to staff. The performance are in there as well, annual revenue and expenditures. When you're looking at the revenue and expenditures, the one thing to keep in mind is it's projected out. You'll see a huge jump between 2025 and 2026. That is because my goal is to build the service so that by 2026, we are doing a transfer a day and keying in on transfers from hospitals to Madison La Crosse, where the return is greater. So that means utilizing a higher license level, utilizing a higher skill, and that kind of stuff. So that's why you'll see that jump. But I will tell you that as you follow it, it flattens out because you're only going to be able to have, just as much business and sustain so far. And so to 2028, it starts flattening out, but it does cover all of the expenses. Call projections are in there as well. And then just wrapping it up real quick, challenges that could affect the operations. If we have a change in our payer mix, our payer mix right now is 73% is on Medicare or Medicaid. 73%, which means, when we receive payment from Medicare or Medicaid, we can't collect the rest. There might be a copay attached to it. We can accept that copay, but the rest of it we cannot legally accept. It's illegal. So we have a lot of write-offs or, debt that we can't collect. If we see changes in our payer mix where that increases, then as a part of this business plan, we need to be consistently looking at what other models of services can we deliver. Maybe we get into the medical transport business, taking people to dialysis and other things. We're kind of caught between Madison and La Crosse. A lot of people go to those places. Maybe that's something we can look at. The community care program, maybe that's something if Medicare decides they want to reimburse on that, that's something we can look at. If we see an increase in uncollectible amounts, then we have to look at other alternatives to be within reason, aggressive on getting our dollars back. Scarcity of volunteers is going to be a problem. That's happening everywhere. Name a community in Southwest Wisconsin that has seen significant growth. I mean, real significant growth. It's aging, especially in our. So that's an issue that we're going to have to stay on top of. Scarcity of certified personnel available to staff the service. That's becoming more and more and more of an issue. I teach at Southwest Tech this program, and I've been teaching it for 8 years now. Every year I like to ask the students, where are you coming from? What service are you going to volunteer with? And many of them would say, Blue River, Lone Rock, Boca, Platteville, Lancaster, Fenimore, Biola, wherever. More and more of my students, especially in the advanced class, they're coming in, what are you going to volunteer for? Well, I'm not volunteering. UW-Madison will help hire me at $21 an hour. Will be an ER tech. La Crosse will hire me. St. Joe will hire me. Burnham Memorial will hire me. They're not, the demographics of doing this for your community is changing. It is becoming more of a career. But the medicine that we're delivering is more too. When I first started, we didn't do half of the things that we do now. Now we can actually improve patient outcomes by delivering medicine in the field. And to expect somebody to volunteer to do that, in some ways is a little unreasonable, because when did we ask law enforcement to volunteer? Do you want CNAs volunteering in the skilled nursing facilities that are taking care of your loved ones? There's nobody that volunteers to pick up the trash in Wisconsin. We have to spend more on trash we pick up than we do in the US. So keeping certified people it's going to be something we're going to have to be aggressive, both in marketing, the work environment we have, the benefit package. It's a whole deal. We're never going to be the highest paid ambulance service out there, but there's other ways that you can keep and retain people by if they feel like you're investing in them. A good facility, which we have now. A lot of those things go a long way to keeping people. So with that, I'm sorry I took longer than what I anticipated, but there's a lot in here. I'll take questions, but I know that you're just going to get a chance to just start digesting this. But please, if you review this, please reach out to me. I haven't had anybody from finance and personnel reach out to me yet on this business plan, and I gave it to them in June. It was mandated by resolution to do it, and the project itself was a good one. It really opened my eyes to areas that we can get better at. It got me even more in tune, and it also really solidified some of the things that I thought I knew to be true. And then when the numbers and the data shows that it's true, that was a big bonus too, so.
This is just for information purposes. Have you seen the increase due to the heat?
We've seen increase, from just the poor air quality, that increases calls. I don't think that we're necessarily done seeing patients who have been battling, what they call long COVID, because we're still seeing those respiratory calls, general malaise calls. Hospitalizations for COVID are still going on. I see that report every week, so those are still issues. But falls are increasing, and falls are gonna come from individuals that are aging and wanna stay in their home, which is, I support that 100%, but we're gonna see those types of calls go as well.
All right, so a couple of questions. One is, are you calculating in your position that part of it for the ambulance service in the non-tax dollars used? How are you calculating?
Yep, so 40% of my position is paid by the ambulance service, which is not levy dollars.
Right, so you calculated these projections with that 40%?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's one thing to think. There's been discussion about, should you split the ambulance service, get away from it? And you can do that. I mean, it's certainly up to you folks. You're the decision makers. You're the ones that were elected to make those decisions. There are a couple things that I would, just food for thought. If you eliminate the ambulance service and it goes another direction, then your townships and your municipality have to pick that up, more than likely. And they're gonna have to pick up that full-time, probably a full-time director, and all of the other pieces that go with it, accounts receivable, accounts payable, the treasurer's office, what they do, the clerk's office, what they do for accounting and corp counsel. Now, they certainly can do that. That's increased cost. County sees a decrease in the sense of, you don't have the ambulance. I can't really see the decrease because the county doesn't pay direct money for the ambulance service. But you are required to have an emergency management director. And we have our fair share of floods, we have our fair share of windstorms, and emergency management office stays busy. So now you're gonna have, trying to find a part-time director, which you're not gonna find, because nobody that knows anything about emergency management is gonna come do this part-time. So now you have that full-time director that you're gonna have to hire. Now your cost just increased. That cost goes on to the taxpayer. The cost that the municipalities have to pick up, that goes back on the taxpayer. So in the end, the people you're serving or serve are gonna pay more if you split these two apart. Because we're not big enough to have a robust, large emergency management department. That's just my thought.
So my next question then is, do you, based on the hourly rate that you're currently paying, the roughly 14, and bring that up to the 18 to 20 that's in the document, have you calculated that into your costs also? And that still becomes a non-tax levy item?
Yeah, all that's calculated in, but what that does is, you'll see where we flatten out, where unless we figure out a way to do either more transfers, there will come a point where, where we're gonna be at, are the municipalities gonna put more money in? Because when I say taxpayers aren't paying for this, that's not true. The municipalities take their tax dollars and put towards the ambulance service. So it is taxpayer funded when you look at it from that angle. If we reach 2028 and there isn't any other way to increase the services provided, then the municipalities would have to choose, do we want to put more in? I left the contract for the municipalities, because every municipality we have pays a yearly fee. I left their fee flat, because I don't believe that the ambulance service should be making a profit off of the money given to us by the municipalities. So I left theirs flat. If we were to get to a point where we needed them to increase it, that governing body would have to vote, and then they could increase that if they wanted to. But the money that we get from municipalities, it's in there just to ensure that we have X amount of months worth of operating expenses, and if there's something big happens, we have that there. It's not to, so I left that contract flat. Everything is in there as far as the other wages. The highlighted ones, I think that's gonna go up. So if it goes up, then we'll have to relook at those numbers though.
Okay.
But yes, increasing across is included.
Very good, thank you. And I guess the other comment that you made is, the service is not mandated by statute. I want to mention also that neither is 911, and I think it's foolish to think that we shouldn't have those. We need those. I'm actually surprised that they're not mandated services, but those are the way the statute is, and to be without them would be ridiculous.
Oddly enough, the statute that governs townships, which I think is statute 61, it says they shall provide. All the other municipalities have given a pass. You may, that's what it says, city council may, village board may, county board may, townships shall. And the ambulance service, Richland County Ambulance Services has filled that void for those townships that the city and the townships that didn't decide to do an ambulance service back in 1968 when it was all starting to begin with in the first place. Yeah, so it is mandated by the townships. And I think we're just one lawsuit away from, is it called case law? Case law establishing the fact that you can't really say township, you pay for it, nobody else has to. They're the most, that's the most challenging level of government as far as finances as the township. They have enough money to do roads. And even then they say, they'll tell you there's enough money, so.
All right, other questions for Darren, emergency management, the committee, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just one other thing I was gonna mention, and Darren talked about it in his presentation, and that is the Medicare reimbursements. So a lot of times in ambulance services, people say, well, just raise the rates, and the people that use the service are gonna pay for it. But you have a high percentage of the people that are using it that are Medicare reimbursable, and we're only gonna get what Medicare reimburses. So it's the private pay people that are really subsidizing the rest of the service. So, and you're an aging county, so we're gonna see more and more people on Medicare.
73%, I believe was your number. That is
Yes.
your income from those services, so that's
73%,
right.
19% is from commercial pay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, we don't raise, they're raising the rates in here isn't something that we look at it every year. We've changed up our billing, how we bill out, and that had a huge impact. It brought us up like almost 50 to 51%, recovering of our cost, which is good. We update our mileage, but if you bill out more or raise your rates, like John had mentioned, you just gotta put that burden on those that are already out there in the workforce trying to make ends meet, and you're gonna see your write-off skyrocket. And then that's a misconception that you're losing all this money, which you're not losing the money, you never gained it, you couldn't have it. It wasn't there to begin with, so. And please, once you take a look at it, I am inviting you, give me a call, stop down, I'll take the time and walk through this whole business plan with you. I'm asking for your feedback. It was charged by the county board to do this business plan, and we completed it. Anxiously waiting for discussion. Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions for emergency management? Hearing none, moving on to item number 11, the PSAP and GIS grants monthly updates. Status on any of that?
Quarterly reports, oops.
Sorry. Quarterly reports for both those grants are due the end of the month. I've already sent out a notice, and I've gotten invoices and such that I need from MIS and the sheriff's department. If Mike has anything from zoning, we can get that included into the report. It's not reimbursed until the end.
Okay. But the progress is still moving. I guess that's our question, is making sure that we're.
Yeah, there's some discussion in terms of the GIS piece, and so there's been discussions between John, myself, Barb. We're hoping to get Mike and some other folks to the table just to kind of see, what can we do? Are there questions still in regards to the grant? So they can keep moving forward. But yes, there's been progress on those grants.
Okay. just to let you know that the second grant has come out. Came out, I think the deadline is end of the month, August 1st. August 15th, is it? August 15th, okay. So there is another round of funding for both GIS and 911 equipment, and that currently is at a little over $6 million. We also had been working to get the Police and Fire Protection Fund renamed, and I believe that's gonna go through, so it will then become a 911 fund with a percentage going just to 911, and then the balance going to public safety projects. How that's gonna sort out, we're not sure yet, but just as an update, looking forward to that being a source of revenue for 911 and public safety. Anything else on the PSAP JS grants? Hearing none, moving on to item number 12, monthly invoices for the Sheriff's Department, department reports.
Do we want to move on to our radio project updates? I see-
Certainly can.
I see Mike Day is on. If
Which
he's
I
ready.
don't like this set, I can't see what's up there, but it's okay, all right, yeah, definitely do that. It is item
19.
Thank you. Item number 19, moving on to 19, radio project updates. Right,
Good morning. Yeah, I'll make this pretty quick. I think the project work is staying pretty stable around the 9-site design. We are kind of taking some final looks at it. We've pretty much got our landowner agreements pretty signed or verbally agreed to or ready to sign, and so we're feeling pretty comfortable there. We do have some work still on the U.S. Cellular side of the 2 lease sites, and I'll kind of circle back to that in a minute here, but there's some progress there as well, but some additional progress too that we still are hoping for. So, but on the landowner side and on the other sites, really taking kind of some last looks at the layout, the design, making sure kind of a high level view, making sure we've got everything that can meet the needs, and everything looks pretty good there. And then also we're taking some last looks at a few of the sites, in relationship to site building costs, and we've looked at some alternatives to try and alleviate that by moving to other locations, but I think we're really coming back and settling on the original sites. There's whenever you move a tower, even a mile or so, especially in Richland County with the hills, there's changes to the coverage and impacts, and so we've taken a look at that. I feel like we've really exhausted or understand the options there and what they could present. But my feeling is we're probably coming back to where we've been settled with those sites, and hopefully getting most of that kind of wrapped up here, probably by next week sometime, because we're certainly moving towards our next piece of the radio project and the DDR review, and so we've got those things being finished up as far as land acquisition or site acquisition processes. Certainly, there's going to be the possibility that all these, well, of course, 7 sites. Not the 2 U.S. Cellular sites. They're going to have to go through the regulatory process and get approval to actually site the towers and the designs that we have. And so there's a possibility that there's some fallout there that we'll have to deal with. But we're trying to get the plan to the process of getting into that regulatory work. So. Touching, I guess, real quick on the U.S. Cellular, we've we've got the two sites there. Of course, the Richland Center site, the one the county uses through an agreement of shared with the city of Richland Center. In that lease, we've just haven't had much discussions on it. We've tried to engage some different contacts and stuff, but to no avail. So we're certainly moving forward, with the feeling that site's gonna, not change for the county as far as the use of the tower. On the site to the south, the Muscadet site, we're kind of in a position right now where we're waiting for favorable lease prices that I think the agency that U.S. Cellular employs they've given us their standard lease fees, but they've then run those up the ladder to U.S. Cellular to hopefully provide a county favorable costs. And so we should have those understandings maybe as early as next week. So, as I said there, we've got the seven towers or the construction sites, and so going through regulatory on those, we've got a few of them already down the path of having initial drawing sets, even some revised drawing sets. So we've got probably at least 4 of them ready to get to the point where we will have a survey team out to kind of get the engineers some additional detail. So that's coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and then working on the final preliminary drawings for the other sites. But we really hope to have that initial survey work completed for all those sites by the end of the month here, and that gets us into that regulatory process where the FAA and FCC and everyone gets to weigh in on whether or not you'll cite a tower location. We do have, again, one concern on the tower that has come back with, something of caution, I guess, and so we'll see where that one goes. But we've got to get that process started, and also that kind of gives us a little better detail on the sites, gives the engineers. So that's looking pretty good. Along the way, I guess, as we look at those sites, we're certainly going to be looking at trying to minimize and the build costs. We do have some challenges with a couple of the sites, and so we're exploring some of the electrical service lines and stuff like that to get the site on the air. Then finally, I guess I'll touch on the radio system pieces as well, and again, as I said there, we've got a DDR detailed design review where the radio vendors going to take all this information, going to take the sites as we've now presented them to be, and we're having some final discussions on the coverage right now to make sure, do we need a little more coverage here? Do we need to raise this tower up a little higher than what we would have anticipated, so we can reach the goals that the county has set for the various channels and operations? So we're looking at that and again, hopefully finalize that here next week. But then that'll all be presented along with any equipment changes or decisions that the county wants to make sure the package meets all the requirements. And I think hearing back from the vendor, on the microwave design and the radio frequencies that they plan to use, because certainly those have to go out for FCC approval once we know the tower sites as well. So all that will get presented on the 18th in about a 4-hour meeting, and at that point it'll just give the county some time to look it over and ultimately sign off on that piece and reach the second milestone of the vendor's contract. But we'll still be working on the civil side forward. I think I would probably still present that as you know, we'll as we won't necessarily have to wait for all the regulatory to come in. We'll start to design the civil bid package based on the sites and you know, anticipate it, or you know, if we get some type of modification or change needed, we can maybe handle it. But certainly, we're probably still looking at trying to get a bid spec on the street in August or early September. So, questions? Or I think, you know, overall things are moving along. Again, I think with the DDR, you know, coming up, I think we'll really reach another level here. So that'll be good to get that completed.
So you said you talked about the bids back in August. So if we're looking at greenfield sites, is that construction yet this year with the winter coming into the picture pretty quick?
Certainly, I think that's, you know, they can. There are vendors that you know, construct throughout the winter. We've had some tower foundations poured in the middle of winter. It's something they can do. I certainly think some of the sites, the couple of sites that are up on the higher bluffs will be a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, we would hope to at least get a vendor under contract, and then you know, a lot of times you know, the process of the most of their work is kind of waiting for the tower steel to get built, to the shelters to get built, and you know, a lot of times you tend to get the contractor pouring foundations and getting things ready ahead of that. But certainly we can kind of flip those two things and have the shelters being built and the steel being developed, so that they can kind of do those things in a quicker time frame, I guess.
Okay. You said the next meeting was July 18th?
Yes, the DDR meeting is July 18th, correct. Now, I guess the last piece I should have touched on too is I have taken a recent look at my budget tracking. I did take an opportunity. We had some recent results over in the other side of Wisconsin, Walworth County, where we had quite a few vendors respond to it, and you don't tend to get the level of detail of how much a tower costs and how much a shelter costs. You really get a level of site costs. And so I took a similar site to many that we're using, you know, 195-foot self-supported tower. Those folks had larger shelters, they had larger generators and LP tanks. I took that into account, but still was able to kind of apply that to you know, the designs that we're anticipating at our sites, and feel pretty comfortable. You know, the budget for the civils works has ballooned up since our original, but you know, since we kind of set things a little while back, I think we're still tracking pretty well. Again, the unknowns there are a couple of sites and how much we might have to, you know, spend on developing maybe a road up to the top of a bluff or something like that, so that we can get electrical services up there. So taking a look at it, or like I said, taking a recent look at it, and maybe happy to kind of share that with the group down the road here as we get the rest of these sites kind of locked down. So
looking at those prices from the other county and trying to make the similarities, what are you seeing as a cost per site on a greenfield, roughly?
Roughly on a greenfield, I would put it right over in between the $400,000 and $500,000 range. And so, you know, again, things depend on the size of the tower, but the ease of, you know, lucky with some of the sites that we were literally, right off of the road, and you can drive your truck off of it today and get to the field, and so those should not change too much, but certainly the ones that go up the hills and such, can be more challenging.
Mark has a question, Barbara, or comment?
Mike, will you speak to him about the reducing of the antennas and the effect that has on coverage, the below 95%, please?
Well, certainly we're gonna look at that again. I think that was kind of the point. What we have in the design as far as transmit and receive antennas, we have separate transmit and receive antennas, and then all of the channels are combined to operate on a single transmit, a single receive antenna. Those antennas need separation on the tower as well, so that's kind of the design parameters. We have looked at the use of a single antenna that is basically what we call a stacked antenna down at the Muscadet site, probably the only site where we would use this configuration. But again, using it there to try and minimize our impact on their tower and thus reduce your monthly costs. We can take a quick look at, here's how two antennas look, and here's how a single antennas look, and then and be able to kind of see the projected difference there. But my goal is that, as we looked at that, it really didn't. It moved the number, but it moved it by a couple of tenths of a percent or something overall. But again, if we see some of that, we might be able to make some of that up by finding a couple of the area sites and increasing their output, or potential height or something to kind of counter that. But again, that is a tool to kind of minimize your monthly costs. And ideally, if US Cellular comes back and gives us a favorable option, then we would take that. But if we have to, we can use the single antenna.
Okay. Other questions on the radio project? Other questions for Mike from the committee? Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mike, for the update, and we'll look forward to hearing the results from the July 18th meeting.
Okay. Thanks for squeezing me in there.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, approve monthly invoices and other sheriff's department reports.
I guess we can start with the bills. Questions about the bills? We do have one item that's highlighted that has its own separate agenda item. That's the scope of maintenance.
Looking over the bills, you won't just look through the bills if you have any questions.
Where's Pomp's Tire? So Pomp's Tire is they're out of Madison, several locations, but that is, so when we buy tires, we technically buy them direct from Pomp's, and then they go to their delivery vehicles. So.
All right, other questions on the invoices? Hearing none, I will be looking for a motion to approve those. For a second? Your seconds, all right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Reports.
All right, so, June monthly report, $68,016.67 for monthly vouchers. Number of jail bookings went up to 75. Average number of inmates housed 39.87. Monthly complaints, 316, so we're still trending upward into the summer. Traffic citation stayed steady at 78. Civil process paper served 32. There's 16 transports per month, so we had more transports than last month, than May, and average number of electronic monitoring was 9, so you can subtract that from the average number of May's hours. Monthly activity, we had dispatch center had 568 calls for service, 93 calls for EMS, and 131 calls for police department.
Any questions on the reports? Do we have any questions, comments on the sheriff's report?
Additionally, I just wanted to make mention, it's, I sent out an email earlier, but I don't know if you saw the news out of the governor's office recently with the Act 19. We have, basically what's happening is DOC is getting a significant wage increase. Where I see that being an issue is possibly high vacancy, maximum security prison, they're going to be upwards of $41 an hour starting. So, that may look attractive to certain people. So, but that's to keep people happy. Keep them here and that, but benefits wise, we need to discuss the change. As far as staffing, I don't know if everybody had a chance to see your staffing report. But we are down 1 female juror position. Other than that, we have everybody on the road has completed field training and is up and about on their own. A couple people training. One person. In the jail, 1 full-time and 1 part-time person. Training in jail. We are advertising for the open position currently.
So the resignation, that the employee is going to stay on as a casual to help out?
Yes, correct. And she's come back working as a casual already.
Comments for the sheriff on the report for the staffing?
I know Jenny had brought up as far as extra staffing for court security. I mean, we love to help out with staffing and have court security at the same time. All our court security officers are casual employees, and we put a message out to see who's available, and sometimes we get people to bite on it, sometimes we don't. If they support where we're going, it's very hard for us to take a road deputy and stick it, the court for 6-7 hours. At the same time, our lieutenant, he is in his office to go work as well. And a lot of times money comes to the court security. So I'm not sure if it's something that we need to look into for security officer. Not that much support, but there's any courtrooms at the same time. It's something that we might have to look into in the future. But it's hard to build to the courtrooms with our staff and current staff.
And I will reiterate what Eric said, because I mentioned it in the past. I think we're very close on the horizon where we're going to need to hire somebody for a full-time court security deputy. I hear Eric said about using our lieutenant, we've also been using our investigator, which also is a great use of his time to sit in the courtroom. Additionally, I just wanted to touch on much where we're at since we're halfway here. My major expense sheets, I'm at 49%, 46%, 44%. So trending well on that. One of them is at 55% police radio. Don't really have control of when those come out. It's we pay our lease payments when we're supposed to pay our lease payments. So and that's a big chunk of payments for power sites.
Okay, questions? Sheriff, you started creating a budget, last year, you budgeted for.
Yeah.
Yeah. You thought that person would be able to do court security too?
Assist with court security, that one of the roles of that position was going to be, coordinating court security, coordinating transports, which is very tied in, obviously very tied to the court, as well. And that they would manage the day-to-day operations of jail and dispatch.
That's something that you're gonna look at.
Yep.
As the new administrator, hear that? She wanted to.
I'm on. What, repeat your question?
When you formulate your budget, you kind of go through and you kind of, that's completed, like, I don't know if you knew that the sheriff last year wanted to have a jail administrator, but county board kind of said, no, I didn't know if, like, you could maybe find out a way that we could get something like that.
Well, yeah, those are things that we can look into for sure. I know, I'm surprised it's not statutorily mandated, to be perfectly honest. Oh, I can't hear what the supervisor is saying there.
It's Supervisor Benji, and we are basically there, the jail inspector has been telling us for how many years away that we have to do it. I'll let Clay
Expand on that. He's just been politely reminding us that we're the only county in the state that doesn't have one.
Okay, well, that's something that we'll have to work through then and go through, because yes, the jail that I was, oversaw before, definitely had a jail administrator. And so it's something we'll have to evaluate. And I think the court security discussion also, I think, is a good discussion for the whole courthouse, not just courts in general, and how we would like to, move forward with that, and what the board's wishes would be.
All right, thank you. Other comments? On item 12, any other reports, Sheriff? Okay, now moving on then to item number 13, committee approval of the annual Spillman maintenance invoice Motorola Solutions taken out of the 911 outlay account.
So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions with this. This is our annual maintenance, basically to run our records management system and our CAD software for dispatch. It's a yearly expense. We have it every year. And
how much is it?
Let me pull that up. I believe it's $25,496.12.
And there is funding in the 911 outlay account for that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion from McGee, looking for a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor of paying, well, this has to go to county board for approval because it's over the dollar limit of 10 now?
Yes.
10,000. So it's gonna go to county board, so I have to get the resolution for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's get moved on to finance, or can this go right to county board? I think we can take it right to county board because it's, okay. So we can get a resolution on the next county board, we can take care of that. Item number 14, committee approval to purchase the Spillman AVL model.
So, I believe we had this on the agenda back in May. And at that point in time, we were directed to hold off until the PSAP grant came through. So I brought it through for this month and also have the PSAP grant included for this month. So my review of the PSAP grant, doesn't appear to me that it's an allowable expense. It also doesn't appear that it's not allowed. But I'm not quite sure how we want to go about this. We had the money, we set aside the money to purchase that this year. We were a little bit short. I could make up the difference in, budget savings. But I, would like to move forward with purchasing it. I kind of wanted to have this discussion today of, do we think we want to try and purchase it with a grant? It's one of those things I don't think it's an allowable expense, but I haven't asked. I haven't called, Jessica and said, hey, do you think this will be covered?
My input on this is, I would encourage you to put anything and everything you can, into the grant project. If there are funds left over, then that allows the agencies to be more flexible in some of their decisions. I think this one is a stretch. I do, but, that being said, any of the other, maintenance stuff and any of those other bills, I would really encourage you to put them in. Even if they get denied, does not hurt you for other things within that project. So any of those maintenance things, I would encourage you to put in.
Could we put the CAD RMS if it's not on a multi-year agreement?
I believe, can you put it in? Yes, you can put it in. The question is, how is it going to be interpreted? And that's what we're having that discussion with now on the state level, is determine what that means and how that looks. The individual contracts, the annual ones look much better than multi-year, because the multi-years go outside of the grant period, and that's where the kicker has been. So I would encourage you, anything that is annual like that, to put in for.
So the one that we just put in today will come to next year, and that could go into this funding because it would be within the window.
Exactly. And I would also encourage that even the one we just approved, even if you put that in, knowing that there is funding there, it's at least letting them know that that next grant round, it may be coming up. Okay, so I think the maintenance piece of this is something on the statewide side, because that's a critical piece, especially with SaaS equipment and things like that, where you don't have equipment in your office in the dispatch center anymore. It's all remote.
And quite frankly, we're gonna have other maintenance costs coming up.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to find ways to pay for them, and if we can shuffle money into those grants to pay for the other maintenance, that would certainly be a.
Any maintenance stuff that touches 911, I really encourage you to start putting that into this next grant round. Get the attention there, what we need to for the state.
So I guess my question, circling back then to the AVL module.
How much is it?
16,760.
We borrowed, or in the short-term borrowing, we had $15,000 set aside for it. Like I said, I can make up the difference in, for my budget.
How much is annual maintenance?
Let me pull that up, let's see if it's on there.
Karen, did you have a question?
Just looking at the fiscal year 24 PSAP grant announcement, are you talking about these ongoing contracts being under the GIS one or the PSAP one?
Either or.
Because the PSAP one, I'm not seeing anything in there like that ongoing maintenance thing being allowable. Is there some gray area in the language?
So the ongoing question has been, is ongoing outside of the grant period or within the grant? If it's within the grant period, the question is, it's not ongoing. If it's a contract just for a year to hire a service or a maintenance for that within that grant period, compared to a 5-year contract that is actually dated outside of the grant period. And that's the discussion we're having.
So to answer the question on maintenance, the 5 years of maintenance is included in the 16,000.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so in that case, then I'm looking for a motion on item number 14, the approval of the Spillman ABL model. I'm looking for a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So again, this, have to go to county court. 10,000? Oh, okay. Right. Item number, we got that in 15. Can you apply for ESAP and GIS? Give us something new.
I guess it's part of our earlier discussion. I wasn't sure if we should bring GIS onto this one or not, but it all kind of ties together, so we threw it on there. So just looking for permission to apply for the next round of grants. Obviously, we've got a pretty substantial amount of money. With the current grant, see what our needs are together.
Karen?
Grant application is going to be on the 15th of August. Just a bit, as far as the piece that was a lot focused towards getting engineering.
We can't hear anything that's being said online.
Is it all not working? Because I'm echoing in here, I think.
It's not the owl, it's gotta be this one, hold on. Try now.
Testing.
Can you hear us now?
Much better, thank you.
I'm not hearing anything.
Me either.
Hold on, let me just switch the mic to that. Stand by. Went to that. Is that better?
Is it working now? Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear Darren?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I was going to say, what do I need to do?
A cartwheel, stand on your head, and then see how it goes.
No, my number one rule after getting up in the morning is do not make yourself Facebook famous. So I live by that rule. Okay, so going back to the application process for both of them are due August 15th. We did have a lot of success, and I think there might be some opportunities for dispatch on the NG 911 piece. The question I had before might be a little gray area because it does not explicitly say those are not allowed, but the language is a little different. On the GIS one, I think that could be huge for the zoning office because it'll pay 100% of the cost 100% of the time for a person doing dedicated GIS work when it comes to, especially to NG 911. And it's only a 5% match, which is less than last time.
Yes.
So 95% of the cost. So that would be huge, but I'm not Mike and this isn't that committee, but it might be something, because I know Melissa is on with us and she chairs that committee. It might not be a bad idea to sit down with Mike. I think this time though, maybe we should have Mike do is he creates the priorities, he spells them all out, and then I'll put that in a grant application for him if they want to do that.
Okay.
So
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If we contract our GIS, all of our GIS work, is there any language that would preclude that from being covered in the grant?
nope, it specifically says you can hire a contractor to do it too.
Okay, because I mean, currently, obviously, that's what's happening with our GIS work. It's MSA is currently contracted to do that.
What it wouldn't cover is like that daily, those things like, you're cleaning up property lines, things like that. If it doesn't have anything to do specifically with 911, then those duties wouldn't be under the grant, but you'd still have a significant amount of grant money to offset cost.
Right, and even adjusting lines
Yeah,
is
road
important
lines,
for
things like that.
accurate maps, which is
Yeah,
important.
all your
for-
data
Yeah,
maintenance.
anything to do with how that data works that would touch 911 could be funded by this
Yeah.
at 5%.
But we don't have a lot of time,
Nope, tight time frame.
so.
So I guess, Melissa, you want to bring that up if you have questions? I'd be happy to help out with that side of the committee.
I have a meeting with Mike and county administrator next Tuesday that we're going to talk about these grants and the GIS portions of it.
Okay, if I can help, I'd be happy to be there. All right, other questions on the PSAP and JS grants? So county board have to approve that, so we'll make sure we get that on there.
You need to do a motion here.
Right.
Yeah, for us to apply it.
Right, so I was just gonna say, I would make a motion that the sheriff and emergency management apply for the GIS grant, or
PSAP and JS.
correct.
Okay, looking for a second?
I'll second that.
Either one.
No, either one.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good. Moving on to item number 16, committee approval for the jailer dispatcher benefits from 8.5 hours to 12 hours.
So I guess I'm not sure, well, like a few of you were on for, when we had this on finance. So we took what is listed in here as the MOU. That is what we presented. Actually, both documents are what we presented to finance last month at the second meeting of finance last month. It was pushed forward to county board from there. Basically what we're doing is we're doing a trial period of 12-hour shifts, both in the jail and on patrol. The union created this MOU to cover the union employees. At the meeting, I asked that it cover both union and my jail staff, or that we do a similar agreement with the jail staff for the trial period. And I was directed back to this committee. So in the document, you'll see they'll be working a 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off rotation. Basically, it gives them every other weekend as a 3-day weekend, Friday through Sunday. And then they work 12-hour shifts. I believe the shift times might be a little bit different for the jail than what's reflected in the MOU. We're looking at going, so if you divide their current vacation weeks down into 12-hour shifts, it gives them 4.25 days. We extended it to 5 days for union employees. I'd be looking to do the same with the jail. They would also earning benefit time, so they earn their sick leave time at 12 hours instead of 8.5. So they get 12 hours a month sick leave. One other thing that would need to be is that they get paid. So if they holiday pay, they work 12 hours on a holiday now. If they're working 12-hour shifts, they get paid 12 hours of holiday pay, not 8.5 hours of holiday pay. Am I missing anything? But basically, we're aligning the benefit time to reflect a 12-hour schedule is what we're looking at doing here.
So in your other document, you mentioned the other agencies that are doing 12-hour shifts. Are they following this same pattern?
Everybody kind of does it. Everybody kind of does it their own way. Okay. So Aaron might be able to comment on that. Aaron was the one who got contacted and told all the other agencies on what they were doing. Thank you.
I spoke to all the surrounding agencies. For the most part, most of the agencies are following this very similarly. Sauk County, they have not switched to their jail staff yet. They're still working their 8.5, but Crawford, Vernon, Iowa, Grant, they're all switched to 12-hour shifts, 12-hour for holidays, sick time. I think there's only one of them. I think it was Crawford County's 12. Actually, I think their jails, well, anyway, there's one that's not, only one county that I found that was, their benefits for holidays was Lafayette County. They do 8.5 or 8 hours for their holiday and, sick leave, accrual.
So is there what's the cost, additions or subtractions across the department for this?
So as far as the holiday pay, overall, that would be about $11,000 for holiday pay increase from what we pay now. And that's just because as far as paying for employees on working holidays, we actually save money because we will only have, say, 7 employees working on a holiday instead of 2/3 of the department. So we're saving money on that aspect. Where it costs us a little bit more is the people that are off. We now have half the department off. They're being paid just straight pay, but they're still being paid for those days off. And as far as the extra vacation, it's a 16,000. So roughly about $23,000 is what we estimated for an increase of costs. For that'd be for the entire department, not just for the jail.
So you said 11,000 and then 16,000, so I'm getting 27,000 approximately.
And that I just averaged for the, well, I shouldn't say average, for the for the holiday pay, I just did it for one holiday, so I just guessed at 11,000. That might be a little low, but I think what I actually came out is like 23,000, almost 24,000, 23 something.
All right, so questions for Sheriff or the Chief Deputy on this?
Is it true that the jailers right now currently work every weekend?
So not every weekend, that wouldn't be accurate. The way I always looked at it when I worked on the rotation was you had one weekend off a month and a partial weekend off usually. So yeah, you almost work every weekend, but you don't work every weekend.
I'm bothered by that. I don't think that is right at all.
Yeah.
That they have to do that. I think that's probably why we're struggling in our jail and keeping staff is through a case like that, where they don't really get a weekend off to have. Like, I worked 8 hours and I worked every other weekend, so I at least got 2 off a month. Now I do 12 hours and I don't like doing 12 hours, but I have to work every 3rd weekend. So that means I get 2 weekends off and then I gotta work the other one. So I don't know how well the 12 hours is gonna go in the jail when they're locked in there and they can't get out of there to see any daylight. None of that. Like, I find that might be struggling, but I think and they may want to do 12 hours if that's what they want to do in there, I would support it. But I just don't agree with 12 hours inside. I see the road patrol deputies probably could need nice outside and at least active and doing different things. But if we could work on something to get them that weekend off, even every 3rd somehow.
So I will say that when we looked at doing the switch, this grew out of the jail. The jail was the first division to say, hey, we want to do this. We developed a schedule for the jail. Patrol looked at it and said, well, we want that too. So I think as far as benefits wise, just because of the organization of the union, the patrol is a little bit ahead on that. They're also looking at starting later than the jail is though too. The jail starts next week, the 10th.
But did the jail just want to go to this model because they knew that they would have a weekend off or 2 weekends off or whatever it is? Is that their own reason why they did that?
Yeah, part of it is every other weekend off. I mean, if you look at it, you work half the year, roughly half the days of the year. And I just think that those two things are part of the driving force of it.
I just want to mention too, I mean, this is how we saved one of our employees. One of our employees had interviewed for Crawford County. He had a 12-hour shift. He was about to leave, and we told him that we would look into going to these 12-hour shifts. So that kept him here for now. And
still do it for 8 hours?
I'm sure he would do it but there's no way we could do every other
Yes,
weekend
yeah.
for 8-hour shifts with manpower. And then we actually got one of our old employees to come back because we said we're gonna be going to these 12-hour shifts. So we got 2 employees that wouldn't be here because of this.
How long is the trial period?
So we don't have a set date on the trial period. We're looking at a minimum of 6 months for a trial period just to, properly evaluate the rotation or the schedule. But the union, if you look at it from the union side, they'll be going into negotiations next year. So, the trial period could last all the way to the next contract. But minimum of 6 months.
For the jail also?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's we changed, at my business, went to 10-hour days and that extra day off, and it was working for everybody except me. So I suggested maybe we should go back to 5/8. That we were a non-union shop, but I got ran out on a rail. So I think people, when we're talking about our employment overall, people are more enticed with time off, more vacation time. They might take a little bit less money, but because you need time away from work. That's why I never allowed employees to carry time and vacation days over, because you need to get the hell out of here. You need to get away from work for a while. So I think this is a great plan. I'm hoping it works out for you guys. It's the wave of the future, I believe.
Online,
Yeah, this is Candace. Yes. I'm very supportive of the 12-hour shift. That is what we utilized in jail operations previously, and it does assist, especially when there's burnout, when it's hard to get time off, when you're short-staffed, all of those things. Those 12-hour shifts, I think, do boost morale. I think they do help with both attraction and retention. And so I think it's a great idea to pilot it, see how it goes, evaluate the cost, evaluate the functionality, all of those things before then that next union negotiation. It's a really great opportune time to do it. Gives us a full year. I just think it's a great idea to give it a go.
okay, other thoughts? So you need our approval to try this out?
Yes, so I guess I can go ahead and start the 12-hour shifts, which we're going to do, but what I need is, and I guess I'm not quite sure the best way to go about it. I'm gonna try and put this MOU into probably a resolution format.
Okay.
But what it would be doing, I guess, would be amending the county handbook temporarily, or sorry, our addendum to the county handbook temporarily, to allow these benefits under the trial period.
What about cost?
So-
On the budget for doing this.
So we did look at the cost for this year, 2023. I think with what we've had in savings, and by the way, I say I think, I know what we've had in savings for having positions not filled, that will cover the increased costs of the trial period, of the benefit time. That is something we will have to budget for going into 2024, though.
So then I'm looking for a motion for the committee approval to move this on for the temporary change.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'll say, when I did the every other weekend, I did that for 10 years, actually 11 years. And I don't want to do every other weekend again. I'd rather have the 2 off in a row. But since they never had a weekend off, I would say, quote unquote, it's a start. But I still think that there's work that needs to be done here.
All right, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, move forward with that, please. Item number 17, continuing discussion of 89-7 and possible changes. I think we have anything new on that? We push that off to the next meeting.
I guess I was gonna, now that Melissa's on, I don't know if we are prepared to move forward and work on that some more, or yeah, we can postpone it.
I think it would be easier for me if I was in the room
I would agree.
to actually do that. I am so sorry that I am not there. I can't believe it, but I completely forgot about the meeting until I came down to my computer this morning. So I totally blew it, and I am very, very sorry.
Not a problem. It's working. So thank you for coming online when you did. We appreciate that. Okay, so item number 17, we will table today and we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Item number 18, discussion for future jail plans. Anything new with that at this point?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we had that on there. That was an item that I think possibly from the May meeting that we asked to be moved to this meeting. Basically to start the discussion of, I mean, we know we need a new jail. It's just a matter of when we can afford a new jail. So I don't have anything really set to discuss on this unless somebody else does.
I have a brief comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So I mean, I think part of this discussion, Clay, correct me if I'm wrong, but was also about the dispatch, splitting the jail and dispatch. Because we were, as a committee, we have been tasked from the referendum committee to look into whether or not we, as a committee, want to recommend that we would go to referendum for creating a separate dispatch center. And Clay, I think that if you want to talk just very briefly about because Forest County, they used in the referendum committee, they used Forest County as an example of one, I believe. So if you just want to talk briefly on that, so that, because I think we need to at some point respond to what the referendum committee tasked us to do.
So yeah, that is correct. Forest County was used as an example. They went to referendum to separate their jail and dispatch. They created used part of the funding to create what would be the new dispatch center, and then the remainder of the funding to staff said dispatch center. The referendum passed, which is I think what caught everybody's attention. The unfortunate side of that is they couldn't staff it. Which it would be my fear. We're having a hard enough time. The thought is that you separate it and you're not asking people to do two different jobs anymore, which is great. And I do say we lose people. We do lose people because we're asking them to do both jobs. Some people are comfortable doing one part of the job, and others are comfortable doing the other part. There's the select few that are, hey, I'll do both, no big deal. With that said, we can't split them and still cover a jail and a dispatch center. We're going to have to hire more staff, and we're struggling. We only have a couple of applications for two applications for an open jail position, which, I mean, I've heard worse numbers from other counties, but I feel that we're going to have that same struggle when we're hiring strictly for dispatch. That we're just going to get a couple applications for what could be 8 positions, and we're not going to be able to staff it. So for that reason, I guess, and for some other reasons, I really wouldn't recommend going to referendum for this project right now. I think my thoughts on this right now is the time for us to do that is much like Iowa County did, is when we're building a new jail or a new law enforcement center. Then we try and push for this, and we start hiring staff as we're getting ready to move into our new center, and we're preparing for that ahead of time. I just feel that we're going to have struggles trying to separate right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say that I agree with the sheriff's comments, and I think also that we have an opportunity, especially with the closure of the UW campus, to take a look at not only the campus buildings, but all the facilities in the county, and really take a long-term approach on the types of facilities that we need and the types of facilities that we're currently in that perhaps we could move out of. And I know that Chairperson Brewer is looking at creating a committee that takes a look at all county facilities.
But, and just to echo what Mr. Holcomer was talking about, I think we need to be strategic and with land if we do need a jail, but also I think we need to be looking at a public safety complex. So we need to be looking at other entities other than Richland County. Can we look at the city for assistance? Can we work with EMS, the fire department? You know, there's all needs to have these structures and have these buildings. We need to work together with the local municipalities in order to come up with something and not just look at housing and other things and take up the land that we got and whatever. So like, we need to be strategic and like, we need to look in the future and like, we need to work with these other entities. You have to, in order for it to make it work for us.
Chief Deputy?
I guess I just wanted to say, I mean, I know we don't have the money right now to build this facility. I mean, this is probably 10 years out. But I think Melissa is big on this too, is that we need to start these talks and we need to start the discussions of what kind of facility we want. Do we want it to be just a law enforcement complex, or like Carrie said, you know, are we incorporating other entities into this structure? Possibly a new courthouse too. We have a lot of needs with the courthouse. Now would be a good time to solve all those issues in one facility. But I think the first thing is we need to figure out, you know, where we would look at building, and then start talking about how we need to move forward with the plans as far as getting some design, the cost of these plans. And I mean, after 10 years, when we maybe have money to build it, it's going to take another, 5 or 6 years at that point. So I think we need to start the discussions early on how we move forward with those plans in year 10.
We need to have the land available. And if we got land that's already got infrastructure there, like, you know, fiber and utilities and stuff that's needed, like we need to keep that land. I'm saying this to my other friends that I'm on the board with, to not sell land off the bat just for other things, to get cash flow. Like, buying land will be a big expense if and when that happens, or if it ever does.
I would also share, I did have discussion with a county that did separate their jail and dispatch. Currently, they have one telecommunicator on for 12 hours. And they currently are are unable to get grants because of that. They are fully staffing their jail, they're able to, but they have one telecommunicator on sitting in the chair for 12 hours a day, trying to fill those other positions, so.
They're probably getting breaks from patrol or
Exactly.
admin staff or.
Yeah, so it's a big struggle right now. Melissa, other thoughts, comments on this?
No, I think what I might do is just kind of write up a summary of what we've talked about to create a document that we can then send back to who, I'm not even sure who we send it back to. The referendum committee is not active. So I'll find out, just so that we have on record that we're gonna, I'm assuming that we are in an agreement that we're gonna officially respond with, no, we don't think it's a good idea for us to go to referendum in 24 for purposes of splitting our jail and dispatch. And these are the reasons, if that's agreeable with the rest of the committee.
I think it should go to strategic planning and our capital improvement projects, and it's got to be on our radar during budget cycles. So from here on out.
I would agree, getting a document forwarded and getting that, let them know where our position is and the reasons why is a great idea.
Yeah, and then and also I think we all know that we do need to have these conversations starting now about a public safety center, or however, a law enforcement center, whatever we want to talk about. We do want to, so maybe we want to come up with some kind of timeline that we recommend that, you know, because so a Pine Valley should be paid off, I believe it's 2034. And so I think that you're absolutely right. We want to make sure that, you know, 5 years before that, we're actively planning and actively getting ready so that when we are able to borrow the money, we're ready to go and we aren't waiting another 5 years before. That's what Iowa County did. As soon as they had paid off their administrative building, they immediately were ready to go with borrowing for their jail facility, their law enforcement facility. And they had great success with that because then there was no change in the tax. You know, the taxes didn't go down significantly and then they borrowed a year later and it went significantly up. So for the taxpayers, it stayed steady. So there's many reasons why we want to make sure we're prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's a couple other things that are important to point out. There's a lot of things that changed in the last 12 months. You know, we know what's happening with the campus. There's approximately $800,000 in shared revenue. There's possible funding that can come in from the state because of the closure of the campus. We're still working on that. Sales tax dollars are slightly up from where they were the first 6 months of last year. So we have to keep in mind that a lot of things have changed in the last 12 months. And some of them I see as real opportunities for the county. But as Gary mentioned before, we have to be really responsible and smart about the moves that we're making now, that we don't create bigger holes in the future.
Okay, being this is a discussion item, I guess we will wait to see what that letter looks like, Melissa, and we'll put that together and go from there. Any other discussion under 18, future jail plans? Hearing none, we've already discussed 19. Moving on to item number 20, mapping, radio system, and squad updates. I think the mapping and radio system we've talked about. Anything on the squads?
Nothing really to report on the squads. You might notice that we have a couple brand new squads out in the parking lot that are lettered. They are not equipped, so they're not functional squads yet, but they look like it. Waiting on equipment to come in for those, and then they should be going off to be upfitted.
Okay. Anything else on item number 20?
Nothing else.
Hearing none, item number 21. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
Not sure if this is the spot to put it in or not under 20, but they've started to send out award letters for the AFG grant. And we did not get a turn down letter. So what that means is our application is in play. And it's 2 weeks. So I looked today, we're not listed in the departments that got awarded in Wisconsin, but that's a good news that we didn't immediately just get our application kicked.
So what would you just go over the AFG? Would you do
Assistance Firefighter Grant, and that's the large one that we use or we've applied for subscriber equipment. Okay. So, yeah, unless something comes in the USPS today that I haven't gotten, our application is in place. That's a good thing. Normally, turn down letters go out before award letters start being done. So,
all right, very good. Thank you. Item number 21, then future agenda items. Anything specific? If not, you can always just let us know. We can get it on. Nothing. Item number 22. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Looking for a second. Looking for a third. I'm kidding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.